BMW Motorcycle Owners of America present the Short Wheelbase Podcast. With members in all 50 states, Canada, and across the globe, the BMW MOA invites you to ride inspired. Learn more about membership benefits, including roadside assistance, tire hazard protection, and more at bmwmoa.org. The Short Wheelbase Podcast is also brought to you by Boxer 2 Valve, supplier of quality OEM and aftermarket parts and specialty tools, and by Air Support BMW, offering premium driveline rebuilding and performance enhancements for your air-cooled BMW.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 36 of the Short Wheelbase Podcast. I am joined today with a special guest, Nick. Sorry, I didn't actually ask you in the intro how to properly pronounce your last name.
It's Maffey.
Maffey. Okay. Yep. I wasn't sure if it was Maffey or Maffey, but that's something I should have covered in the introduction, but I missed on that. And I think I mispronounced it back when we showed your bike in a previous episode. So apologize for that. Anyway, we have Nick here. Like I mentioned, he sent a bike into the Airhead Misfits Instagram page probably a few months ago at this point. But I both featured that bike on the Instagram account, and I featured that bike here. I think it was on, let me look at my notes, episode 31. And that was a really nice 81 R100. And I'm going to be popping up pics of that bike just so folks can kind of remember what bike I'm talking about. So the bike you see here is the one that I am referencing. And you know, one thing that really caught my attention on this bike was a couple of the 3D printed parts, a really sweet custom brake pedal that Nick did for this bike. And so I started digging through his Instagram account and realized, oh, he's built quite a few of these bikes, both Airheads and other, all with amazing attention to detail, 3D printed parts, other custom parts. And I was like, I've got to talk to you more and get you on the show. So
awesome.
That is why we have you here today. So welcome again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I'd love to talk more in detail about 3D printing and your process of making parts and industrial design, all that fun stuff. But before we jump into that, I'd love to just kind of take a step back into the past and get your motorcycle origin story and kind of what got you into the world of two wheels.
Yeah, totally. It's funny because for my whole life, I've been into anything four wheels. And originally it was more than four wheels. Actually, my first word was truck. So I've been obsessed with things that move and have engines for a long time. And growing up, my dad always had vintage cars. He's had a Corvette, a 67 Corvette since he was 18 years old.
Wow.
And he's in his 70s now. So I've been in the game for a while. It's been part of my blood. And I guess I started getting into motorcycles, I think, with a lot of people in my generation. I guess our generation was watching like Orange County Choppers and like watching like, like Motorcycle Mania with Jesse James and stuff like that. And like watching all the biker build-offs. And for me, motorcycles, I first started really liking for the fabrication aspect and like kind of the metalwork and metal shaping and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what brought me to motorcycles. And I think as I got older, like my parents were never big into the whole motorcycle thing. They still aren't. They're more into the four wheel stuff.
Got it. Yep. Same.
Yeah. But the motorcycles, I think it's just like for a younger guy, you know, that doesn't currently have a full garage. They're just smaller. You can stick them in the shed and make an impact on them. And I think that's kind of why I like them so much. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into them.
Cool. So that's the background of how you got to two wheels. What got you into Airheads and what was your first Airhead that you picked up?
Well, it's funny because I was I was 17, and my dad had met a blacksmith through a friend of his that was into cars, and my dad was restoring a '67 Austin Healey at the time, and the blacksmith also was a metal shaper, and he put some patch panels in the car for my dad, and so my dad became friends with him, and I was so anyways, I was 17. Um, I was looking for a summer job, and my dad knew I was into metal shaping and stuff like that, and I wanted to learn more about that, so I ended up working. His name's Dick Gambino. He had a little blacksmith metal workshop in New Jersey, where I'm from, and I worked with him one summer, and just so happened he was working on an R100/7 in
Hmm.
there. I think it was like a 78, maybe something like that. And he built a whole aluminum tank for it, an aluminum seat and everything. And he had it all painted, and it had dual plug heads and all sorts of stuff on it that I had no idea what that was at the time. But that was like my first Airhead that I ever saw or really noticed. And ever since then, I was like, man, these bikes are cool. And I kind of, from there, I went through college and got more and more into bikes. And I bought my first bike was a 72 CL350 that I still have, that I customized multiple times in that time span. And yeah, after college, I found a R100 RT. Or I'm sorry, I found an R80 RT. That was kind of the first Airhead I bought. It was an
Gotcha.
86.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's kind of similar where I got my start too, with an R80. Well, at least I had an R100 before that, but that was a short-lived purchase.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned doing metalworking, and then going off to college. Did metalworking influence your college decisions, or was this just something kind of you were just doing on the side for fun?
It was just something I was interested in on the side, but I I was kind of debating on whether or not what I was going to do in college, and I was thinking of doing engineering. Um, but I'm not a big math guy. um,
Preaching to the choir.
yeah. So my sister was like, "Hey, you should check out industrial design," because she went to school for architecture and stuff, so she kind of knew of that world. And I checked it out, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of engineering, but without all the math," and it was great. So I went to school for industrial and interaction design at Syracuse University in upstate New York.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that kind of led me down a whole nother path, which I'll probably get into in a little bit, but kind of actually led me back into some more metal shaping and metal fabrication. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I was with that. But I through Syracuse, I met my best friend there, and his dad happens to own a high end hot rod shop in upstate New York.
Very cool.
Um, and so after school, we were both kind of like, what are we doing with our lives after we graduate? And he was like, well, why don't you come work with us for the summer? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm in. So I worked with him for the summer, and I ended up kind of being up there on and off for about 3 years, helping out and learning as much as I possibly could. They were both great teachers, so that was kind of where I really learned so much about fabrication, but also attention to detail, especially when building kind of high end classic cars and
Yeah.
muscle cars and hot rods. And that's sort of what led me down the road. And that's kind of what got Maffey Moto sort of kicked off a little bit heavier than I probably would have been able to do without knowing them. So
Cool.
I owe them
Yeah.
a big.
That's an amazing experience, especially at that point in life, right? You come out of college, you're still young and very, you know, susceptible to learning, right? Like you can just kind of jump in and learn stuff so much easier at that point in life. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that kind of kickstarted Maffey Moto. I jumped onto your website beforehand, and it looks like you've been kind of running this for about 10 years now. I was going to ask you what inspired you, but I have a feeling it had a lot to do with your time at the hot rod shop, right? Is that kind of what helped transition?
I started, so Maffey Moto started as an Instagram account. It was basically a way for me to just chronicle what I was doing with bikes. And I had bought that CL350 my junior year of college. And I was like, well, I want to modify it. Like, I'm going to start this account and just start kind of, posting pictures of what I'm doing to the bike and what shows I'm at and stuff like that. And then, yeah, so that's kind of where it started. But I think that actually came out of, I was able to study in London for a semester when I was in school.
Cool.
And motorcycles over there are huge. They're on every street corner. People are riding them all over the place. There's really cool bikes just like parked on the street. I think there's a really big bike theft problem there now. So I think a lot of those bikes are hidden away. But there was a shop there called Untitled Motorcycles. I don't know if you had heard of them.
Doesn't ring a bell, but that doesn't mean much. It's just forgotten by now.
Yeah, they still are around. But at the time they were this little shop in Camden Town in London, and I walked by there a couple times. I never got the courage to go in and talk to them, but
I have to imagine it's intimidating with such a bike scene over there with the Ace Cafe and all the stuff that's going on.
Right.
Those guys walking around in leather jackets and little tiny helmets. And
yeah, exactly. So it was a little intimidating, but it was cool to see the stuff I was seeing on Instagram, in real life over there. And when I got back, I was kind of full bore into motorcycles and knew that I wanted to take it further. So I think that was kind of what really kicked things off with Maffey Moto. But I think just over the years, I have a full-time job. I'm a full-time industrial designer. I work at a design consultancy here in Atlanta. And I think doing Maffey Moto stuff on the side has really kind of helped me stay creative even in my everyday work, because it's hard, as a creative yourself, it's you get burnt out really fast if you're just doing stuff for people that tell you what they want you to do for them.
Right. It gets repetitive too. It's kind of,
it does
not soul crushing, but it's soul crushing in a way.
In a way, yeah. You can get on a project where, luckily where I work, we work on some cool stuff. But you get on something that you're just not super into, and it's helpful to come home and be like, you know what, I'm going to design that thing for my bike and flex those muscles in a different way. So, but that's kind of
that's awesome. I mean, it's interesting. I think you're probably the fifth or sixth person, similar age that has a similar story, right? Has the day job that isn't necessarily bad, right? It's a great job. It's fulfilling in many ways, pays the bills as well, and got to come home and do something a little bit more analog, right? Get off the computers a little bit. And although I guess with some of the work that you're doing, it actually brings you onto the computers even more. Which is actually a really great segue into talking a little bit more about sort of like I said, what caught my attention on your builds, specifically the 3D printing. Talk to me a little bit about how you use 3D printing to kind of create parts, and what your process is for doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, lucky for you, I brought some examples. So
awesome. Show and tell. Love it.
Do a little show and tell. But yeah, so that actually that's a good segue for me. The R80 that I had bought just to mess around with on the side, and I had it just sitting in the garage at my dad's shop. And I was working up at the hot rod shop at the time, helping out on a car for SEMA, the SEMA show out in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And they had gotten a sponsorship from a 3D printing company called Ultimaker to 3D print some parts for the car they were building. So they were the company was Ultimaker was toying around with having a booth at the SEMA show. And they were talking to my friend up there, and they were like, we'd love to have a booth, but it's really expensive to have one that's big enough to fit a car in. Is there anything you guys could like put in it? He was like, well, my friend has this motorcycle. Like, we could build that for the booth. And
Nice.
So he called me and he was like, hey, do you want to build that bike for SEMA? And I was like, okay. And it was only like,
heck yeah.
Yeah, I was like, let's do it. And it was only like a month or two. I think it was 2 months away. And the bike was it was completely apart. I like hadn't started any fabrication on it at all. It was the first Airhead I ever had, so I didn't really know anything about them. I was
so
like
suddenly,
relying on
I don't mean to cut you off, but so suddenly you are now doing what you watched on all of those TV shows that got you inspired. The Jesse James, build it in a week and all that kind of
exactly.
stuff.
I was a little bit used to it with the hot rod shop because we had built some cars and some very, very tight timelines previous to this, but the bike was new. I mean, and they build cars and they can build anything, but they were a huge help on me building this. But it was really like, my boss up there is just kind of like, you got it, just just keep picking away at it. And I kind of worked at it pretty much until 10, 11, midnight, 1 a.m. for like a month straight, and got it done. But that was my first kind of foray. That's what led into the 3D printing on the bike stuff, because I saw how well it worked on cars, and we were doing, end use parts that were body worked and painted and stuff on the cars.
Oh, cool.
And using a lot of it for like making jigs and fixtures to do things. And it was making the process a lot faster from just doing everything by hand. So it was a good transition, and it really lends itself nicely to bike stuff because it's smaller and most 3D printers are kind of small. So
right.
You can fit full-size parts on a, the at-home desktop 3D printer that like you don't have to glue them all together like you do on a car.
Right.
But that was back in 2018, and like 3D printing and laser cutting and CNC bending and stuff has really come a long way since then. It's way more accessible. There's a ton of services out there to do it. You can have people 3D print for you, or you can buy a machine for, sub $500. That's like, or sub even $200 in some cases.
Yeah.
That'll really make nice prints. So I think, we were some of the first people to be doing it back then. Like when you showed up to the show, people were like, "Oh, it's 3D printed." Like, no way. But now it's like pretty common.
Right.
But I think, that kind of led me to like, you can make really custom looking parts. What they are custom parts, end use parts at home without having a CNC machine, without having really much of anything. If you have a welder, it helps. But I think it was just, I can show you like, you talked about the brake pedal. We'll show you how that kind of developed.
Oh, awesome.
So,
yeah.
So, I think you kind of have alluded to this before. I think on the last podcast that you featured my bike on, but when people put either like a 2-in-1 or like high pipes on a any Airhead, that dog leg little brake pedal,
my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, it always drives me nuts. And like, there's like a lot of big shops out there that are still just hanging that thing down low. And I know, budgets are budgets and whatever, but I just always hated it. And I looked at it one day and I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a brake pedal for this bike because I can't stand looking at that. And so I took measurements with just a set of calipers off of the stock brake pedal, and I got kind of close. And that led me to this is just like a really quick 3D print.
Okay, yeah.
You know, just to kind of get the offset that I needed and the length and the height based off of the pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got like the backside piece that this one was to sort of link up with the stock or factory brake light switch on the top there, and also where the brake rod grabs there. And started off as that so that I could kind of validate what I was doing. And I did a couple of those and got close and felt confident enough, and then kind of finalized it and sent it out to be laser cut. So you can see this is like the laser cut piece, and it's all CNC bent.
Oh, very cool.
And then just TIG weld it together. This is stainless. So this was the first iteration, and this was the one that was on the bike at that show that I took it to.
Nice.
But it was a little bit off still. So what's nice about all these services are you can just make the modifications in CAD and send it back out to get made again. And then I clean it up because it always has mill scale and stuff. Or stainless has like a weird finish on some of the thicker gauge stainless. You have to kind of sand and smooth out, but you just weld it up and it's ready to go back on the bike.
Nice.
So V2 is on the bike right now, and it fits a lot better and works a little bit better. So your foot's in a better spot. But I got to get you one. I want to get you one for your scrambler.
I need one for the scrambler I'm building for sure.
You're going to be another guinea pig.
Yeah, send me testing. I'll be your guinea pig for sure. What services do you typically use when you send those out to get made?
So I use a combination of, well, this was done through Send Cut Send.
Okay, yeah, it's one of the big names for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the pretty common ones. But there's another service that is called Osh Cut, OSH Cut.
Okay.
They're out of Utah, I think. They are typically a little bit more expensive, but their quality is really, really nice.
Okay.
So if you need something super, I mean, Send Cut Send's fine, but there's going to be some like stuff you got to grind off or whatever, like mill scale or like scale from the laser process, but generally is pretty nice. But yeah, that's what I use for that. But and I have a 3D printer and stuff that my own, and then where I work is actually pretty great because one of kind of the perks of working there is we have a shop, like a full shop, that we can use after hours to do our own kind of hobby projects. And so that's kind of where I'm able to, we have some better 3D printers there that print a little faster and stuff like that.
That's the one thing, right? Is you can get yourself to a test part pretty quickly aside from the print time. That tends to be the slowdown.
It is, but like we have Bamboo Lab 3D printers at our office, and they are scary fast comparatively to my home printer. Like you can print parts in a couple hours, and they're big parts, and they're really nice quality, and it's a little bit of upfront time with CAD, but I mean, once you get that down, it's pretty quick to make iterations and change things, and it's only getting better. I mean, those printers years ago were thousands of dollars for something anywhere close to that quality, and now, those things you can pick them up for. Sometimes they're on sale for $300, and they're lightning fast, and so.
Yeah, I picked up, I think it's a Creality, I think is the name of the company, if I remember correctly. I picked one up, I think 2 years ago on a Black Friday sale. And, I have a buddy that I race with in my 4-wheel shenanigans, but
Yeah.
he's a big 3D printer, makes his own parts and stuff, helps us build stuff for the race car. But
Sweet.
he recommended that, to check out this printer, and I clicked on the link thinking, oh, this is going to be like $1,000 or something
Nah.
insane. And it was, I think, $300 on sale. And it
Mhm.
even came with like a couple of reels of filament as like part of the package.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I picked I picked that up, and I've printed mostly just like toys and goofy stuff for my kid. And,
Sure.
just, I haven't really branched off into the CAD part yet because it's a whole piece of software I've never toyed around with myself.
Sure.
But I'm hopeful at some point here I'm going to try it out, and that my design, my graphic design, my web design background can
You'll pick it up.
maybe transition a little bit into that.
I mean, honestly, Adobe Illustrator is like more complex than some CAD software. I feel like.
Okay. I need to just try it then.
Yeah. I think it's like if you can draw lines in Illustrator, you can do CAD. I mean, it's like,
all right,
it's essentially you draw like an Illustrator sketch and you extrude it. You know?
Okay. That gives me more confidence than I had before this conversation.
Yeah, you got it. If you ever have any questions, you can always text me. But.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, the 3D printing, like you said, it's come so far, and it's really cool to see how people are using it in the automotive space and the motorcycle space. Like I mentioned, my buddy that I race with, he's built us some things. He built us these mounts we built this big front splitter for our Datsun race car, and
sick.
we kept dragging the splitter, putting the car onto the trailer. And so he built these aluminum mounts that you just pull a pin and the whole splitter comes off as one big unit.
Yeah.
And he's currently working on a new pulley. We had upgraded our harmonic balancer to an aftermarket one, and it had a much smaller pulley. And we kept burning through alternators at the races because we were under driving the alternator. And so he's now, I was asking specifically about who you sent your parts out to get made by.
Totally. Yeah.
Because we need to get a pulley made. He's already got it all drawn up in CAD, and we're just trying to figure out who we're going to send it off to. And I'm glad to hear that the two names you mentioned, he has mentioned as well. So we're on the right path.
Send has machining services now. So you can kind of do that on there. I've tried all of them between myself and my work, and some of them aren't reliable. The ones that I mentioned are, but some of them aren't out there, so you got to be a little bit careful. We've gotten burned a couple times on prototyping projects that were really late. But yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's been amazing to see how much it's progressed and how it can be used. And I think it's really enabling, smaller shops, hobbyists, people who don't have a full blown CNC machine in their garage or workshop, or a mill or any of those kind of tools that, take up a ton of space and cost a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to see what people can come up with, and what they make. Just 3D print it, figure it out like you do, and get it all lined up, make sure it fits the way it needs to fit, and then send it off. Super cool.
Yeah, it makes everything just go so much smoother. I mean, like I can show you a couple other things that I did. Like this is a 3D print of the license plate tail light / blinker turn signal mount that I made. And this one was just really quick. I was like, I want to make sure that the angle of the taillight was what I wanted, and I printed it out really fast. Didn't have to be really nice. It just needed to be kind of the right size. And then this is the CNC bent stainless version of it. So it's great for stuff like that, or even this. Like these are like not even completed prints of a lower fender mount that I made.
Okay.
So I wanted to utilize the factory. I think it's the lower battery box mount in the frame. Either that or it might be the lower fender mount. I forget. I think it's the battery box mount, the lower one in the frame.
Sure.
And I
yeah.
wanted to utilize those to mount my new fender. So it was kind of just sticking. The fender was, I had it like partially mocked up in there, and like I took some measurements off it and I made these in CAD and then printed them really fast and was able to figure out like, okay, yeah, this kind of matches the curvature and it fits close to, it fits on the existing little rubber bushings they have there, or the rubber standoffs. So it's really good for that stuff. I mean, you can kind of fine tune things, and like you said, you just make sure it fits, and then you can spend like more money to have it made at somewhere if you want to.
Well, and that's actually what I was going to ask you next, because you did the headlight, sort of like shroud, nacelle, or whatever you want to call it, on that R100 scrambler that you just built. And what I couldn't tell completely from the photos is that actually the 3D print, or did you 3D print it and then get that made out of something else?
That is actually the 3D print, and that's a great compliment. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
because I spent hours sanding it.
I was like, based on the shape of it, I was like, it would have been really hard to get this made in another material. So
yeah,
I kind of assumed it was a 3D print, but like you said, you sanded it so well, painted it so well, and got it all. Or maybe it's not painted, I'm not sure.
It's painted, yeah.
Oh, it is painted. Okay. But either way, like looking at it, I was like, I couldn't quite tell what the process was, and I thought that was really cool.
That was my goal.
Nice. Well, you achieved it on that for sure. That headlight setup is slick. It looks really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was basically the same thing. I kind of, to get the spacing of the trees and everything and the fork tubes, I made a couple little mock-up parts, and I put a caliper on the fork leg and made the part to fit the height of between the spacing of the two trees, and made a couple little mock-up parts, figured out the width that I needed, and then modeled it up a couple times because I didn't like it first time I modeled it.
Sure.
And that one was just printed out, and then these new printers, like I said, are so nice that I sanded it quite a bit and then primed it a few times, sanded out the primer and sprayed it with a finish coat, and we were did a little satin clear, and just with spray cans.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, is this something you're sending out, or are you doing this in the shop by yourself?
I think I pride myself in doing things like low budget that looks high budget.
Awesome.
I think a lot of people get intimidated when they are trying to build a bike or restore a bike or what have you, or a car, and they think like, oh, I can't afford to like do the paint nice or whatever,
right.
And and there's plenty of stuff out there that you can utilize to make stuff look really nice, without I'm not a independently wealthy man, like I do this is something I do with extra money. It's a limited budget deal, and like I try and have the most impact I can, and I think you can just do it yourself if you just spend the time on it and make it look really, really good.
Right. Right. And be willing to maybe mess it up once or twice, right? Like it's like,
because if you're not paying somebody else to do it, like it's only your time,
Right. Exactly.
So like
and I don't know, that's something that I enjoy, right? It's like, I'm going to lace up a set of wheels for the first time on this bike I'm building. I've never done that before, and I'm probably going to mess them up at least once and have to redo them. But that's part of the process that I enjoy, is figuring out how to do it. Spending the hours on YouTube videos and the internet and weird forum places and things like that, trying to study
ADV
up as
rider
much as.
Yeah,
I was trying not to actually say it, but yes, ADV rider is typically where I am.
It's crazy. Like I like, back in high school, I was big on. I have a 4th gen Camaro,
Okay.
the Catfish generation.
Yeah.
That was big. Like there was like a little local forum and stuff. But like if you ever needed to learn anything, it was on there. But today for like Airhead stuff, it's insane how much
I know.
info is out there. It's like you
Yeah.
don't need to know how to do anything. You can
Nope.
just look it up, and it's
Nope.
there's like or Snow Bum and all those guys. It's like
Well, and with
crazy.
AI now, you know, you can
don't even have to find the website.
Nope, you can just use Chat GPT and it's going to pull in all of that information from Snowbum. And I want to caution people, be careful, double check your torque specs and all of that fun
That's
stuff.
right.
But it does make getting to an answer a lot faster and a lot easier, as long as you're making sure you check up on specific things.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I've seen some people do like, I don't know if you've seen with the car stuff. I've seen some people trying to get tunes for their fuel injected cars off through AI.
That I have not seen, but that kind of terrifies me a little bit.
Yeah. Using AI to tune this LS motor or something.
Wow.
But,
that's a whole corner of the internet I haven't discovered, but I have something to do tonight.
Yeah. It's out there.
Cool.
People have tried it.
Right on. Well, I love talking about all this stuff. I could probably talk to you about all this stuff for hours, but I want to keep us moving forward a little bit here. Like I said, you just built this 81 R100. Do you currently have something on the lift or about to be on the lift as your next project?
I don't. Right now, I'm kind of using the R100 as sort of a test bed. Because I think moving forward, I'd like to start getting into making some parts for Airheads and potentially other bikes. And this bike is a good test bed for a lot of that. The brake pedal is one of the parts I'd like to kind of dip my toe in and see how it goes.
Cool.
But right now I have it partially apart again because I'm doing a couple different things. And a different airbox is something that I'm dabbling in. And there's just some little fine detail work that I want to finish up on it. And it's funny, like I said, my company that I work for is really cool about things, and there's a couple motorcyclists in the group, and I actually keep my motorcycle directly behind my desk at work.
That's cool.
Which is fun because we have like kind of a warehouse, sort of converted warehouse space, and so it sits behind me, and I can like kind of noodle on it when I get a chance. But
nice. That's a job perk for sure.
It's a big job perk, yeah. But I think I've been really curious about getting an oil head, and kind of seeing what I can do to one of those. Because there's some awkward stuff out there, in my opinion. Some custom GSs of R1100 and R1150 GSs that are a little awkward. But I think, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd like to dabble with one.
I've also, I don't know, I don't want to annoy oilhead people by saying this, but I feel like a lot of the custom parts that I've seen for oilheads, like bar risers and things like that, they're always just like, they don't match the bike. They're always this like just chunk of aluminum.
Yeah.
Like there's like no thought into them. And again, I'm sorry if you're the one who manufactures these.
You're doing a great job.
You're doing a great job. Visually, maybe not. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see with somebody with your background and your skill level, like what you could come up with for those bikes. Cause it's a little awkward right now.
They're a little awkward. Yeah. No, I don't know. I think the tank shape on like the GS bikes, especially, is really cool. Like I like that little hook down in the front on like I guess those are the adventure versions. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I'm not super well versed either, but I think I know what you're talking about.
I feel like Airheads are like, they're your gateway drug to other BMW motorcycles for sure. And I think like, I don't know, Airheads are just, I think after getting into them, you realize there's such a great community surrounding them. And the people that you meet that have Airheads, some of them are a little odd, but like in kind of a fun way, you
Right.
know? And, you know, it's like they're a little quirky, and that's cool with me. I like, you know, being in a community that really wants to help each other out and like really wants other people to learn and get into it. And I think there's, not going to name any names, but there's other brands out there that aren't like
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah.
There's other bikes out there that are a little bit exclusionary. And I think the Airhead stuff, it's just like everybody's like, sweet. Like some people hate that you modified an original bike, but that's okay. You
Right.
know, like you should have seen it when I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, you know, I don't know, I want to say 10, 15 years ago, about the time I kind of got into Airheads, there was a lot more of the I don't want to say old guard, but the older generations of Airhead riders that were very against the cafe scene. They were very against people customizing their bikes. And at least from my perspective, through doing, you know, this podcast, through doing the Airhead Misfits thing and sort of getting out into the community a lot more than I was, is I'm finding that there's actually just a really loud, small group of people on the internet that don't like these things. And it seems like there's more of them than there are. It seems like there's more purists than there truly is. There's actually a lot more people just like us who love these bikes, whether they're customized or not. They're, you know, and we're just here to have fun and keep these bikes on the road, which to your point is why this community, why Airhead communities are awesome. So I'm glad that you're experiencing that too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. I think, especially in Georgia, I haven't even made a lot of connections in Georgia, but there's so many like Airhead, like specialists and stuff, obviously up in Watkinsville, that Boxer Works. I haven't even had to like reach out to them yet about stuff, because there's like some local guys in the Atlanta area, and you know, it's just a big community. And I think like even like you know, around the country, there's just like it happens. One of my boss's friends, big Airhead guy, and I had a carburetor question the other day, because so I bought this bike and it was missing a lot of random parts, but they happened to be very expensive random parts, such as the carburetor bowls. It was missing one bowl, and I went on Euromoto Electrics.
Are those the 40 millimeter carbs or the 30?
They're 40s. And did you know that the 40 millimeter Bing has two types of flow poles?
Two different.
The shallow, which I have in my hand, and then the deep one. Well, I have the deep ones, and they're very hard to find. So I found them, but it took me a while.
And you wouldn't even notice, like, unless you tried to change them, you would have no idea.
Which is exactly, I put the short one on, and I was like, it's hitting the jet. Why is it hitting the jet? Like, it shouldn't be. The other side fits. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh no.
I wanted to circle back quick, because you mentioned two things. You mentioned Boxerworks and Oilheads, and I think Darren would be yelling at the screen right now if I didn't plug the fact that he is working with Chris Ori, the new owner of Boxerworks, to launch an Oilhead podcast in the coming weeks, months. Perfect. I'm not sure on the timeline, but I just have to throw that out there because you mentioned both of those things. So keep an eye out for those.
I will,
especially if you buy an Oilhead, then you can learn about them.
I know like a little bit. There's like the ABS stuff that they've got going on. I know that is not ideal, but like not a whole lot else.
Right. Cool. Well, we've gotten through all the questions and talking points that I had. I wanted to give you another opportunity to just, if there's anything else you wanted to chat about what you have coming with any bikes that you're building or parts that you have coming, or just anything in general that you want to chat about before we kind of wrap.
Yeah, I think going back to the kind of the Misfits, like Airhead Misfits stuff, like what you're doing is really cool. And when I found your page, I was really stoked, because
Thank
I
you.
think like, the younger side, like you're saying, of the, airhead hobby is, it's out there, but like it's good to kind of bring them into one spot. And I think a lot of us younger guys are like, okay, like you said, with modifying things. I think it's cool. Like it's a cool way of sort of highlighting some smaller people um, in the in the world of airheads. And I've found a bunch of people through your page
Great.
that are doing really cool stuff that I've been able to follow and check out what they're doing. And I think like for everybody, it's like the sharing of ideas is key to doing all this stuff. And I think that's why I like showing like the nitty gritty process of stuff. And on my Instagram, I try and kind of get more into the details. At least I've been trying to do that a little bit more recently, because I think too many people and like some, you know, even in the hot rod world and stuff, try and hide stuff. But I think
Yeah.
it's really important to just be like, no, this is how you do it, and you know, get out there and try it, and we can all have better bikes because of it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because I've actually, at least with most of the folks I've interacted with in the Airhead community, both through the Misfits page and through this podcast, I haven't really stumbled across a lot of folks who are kind of hiding their
Gatekeepy,
yeah,
yeah,
they're not really gatekeeping. And it's interesting because you had mentioned that your dad was in that hot rods and cars and things like that. It's a similar background for me, but it was my grandparents, and you know, they're still alive, and I go back to Pennsylvania to visit, and I talk with them sometimes, and they ask me what I'm up to with the bikes, and you
yeah,
know, they've made multiple comments about like, well, you have to get to know these people so that you can figure out what secrets they have and what parts they're stashing and hoarding away. And I'm like,
yeah,
I haven't met anybody that does that. If anything, most of the people that I've talked to are like, I have a whole thing of carburetors. What do you need?
which
Like,
one?
or
Yeah,
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 or I have a warehouse full of stuff. Do you need
yeah,
anything? Like, let me know.
yeah,
And so I
yeah.
think it's great, and it's really cool that this community in particular isn't as gatekeepy as some of the other ones like hot rods and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's cool. It's funny. I bought a part from a guy on eBay a couple months back, and he like insisted not giving me his number and having me call him. And we ended up talking for like over an hour because he was an older airhead guy. He had a ton of bikes and had a ton of airheads over the years. And we just, he was telling me all the stuff he had and what like we were trading stories back and forth and rides he had been on, and it was just like this random guy from eBay. But he was like a really great resource, and he had some other parts that I needed, and like um it's just funny. Like I think it reminds you, especially in today's day and age, to just get out there and talk to people, and
Sure.
like that guy that like has that random farm somewhere might have like 60 airheads in the barn.
Yeah, you never know. You never know where they're
You
hiding.
never know. They're out there.
And I feel like the more you get out there and talk, the more stuff just starts popping up. I feel like over the past
Totally.
like year or so, it's like I'm actually to the point where I'm like, I can't keep looking at Marketplace, because between Marketplace and the random people just reaching out to me saying, hey, I've got this or I've got that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't buy all this stuff.
Exactly.
I want to, but I just can't.
Right. Yeah. You gotta restrict yourself a little bit. I like try and keep just one airhead at a time, which is kind of tough, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And N+1 is a real thing.
If anyone has a really cheap /5 out there, might be interested, because that's, aside from an oil head, I've been looking. I want to do kind of a short wheelbase bike, because I've always had, like, the earliest bike I've had is this 81,
Mhm.
and then had an 82, and I had an 86. So I've never had kind of the earlier bikes. So I'd like to try one. I love the later bikes, but I don't know. I think to get that full experience, you need to have an earlier like drum break.
Yeah, drum brakes, a heavy flywheel. You got to get the whole experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
To call myself a true Airhead guy.
Right on. All right. Well, I think that's a perfect spot to kind of wrap this up. Folks, if you've got a /5, Nick is a buyer. Just let us know.
Cheap.
Yeah. Cheap is the key word here. So let us know what you've got. Speaking of that, ways to get in touch with you. Obviously, you mentioned your Instagram. I will throw that link in the description so that folks can find your Instagram page. I'll also throw your website in there so folks can find that as well. Everybody, please jump on there, follow him, see what he's up to, see what parts he's making, because he's doing amazing work. Before I do the final wrap, one last chance.
No,
you good?
Thanks for having me.
All right, perfect. All right, everybody. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to support the BMW MOA. It is what keeps the lights on here. So jump on their site, become a member, and we'll catch you next time. Ride safe.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on the Short Wheelbase Podcast, presented by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. To join the club, visit bmwmoa.org. You can find full-length episodes of the excerpts heard here on the Airhead 247 podcast. The Short Wheelbase Podcast is produced and edited by Nick Malozzi. Audio segments by Jeff Glover. You can check in with Nick at Airhead Misfits on Instagram.